uh, sessions today will be recorded and available on our website. I have a little bit of a slide about that at the end of our discussion today. But I wanted to welcome you to our very first discussion group. These are discussion groups that we will be hosting every week from now until the end of April. We're going to talk a little bit during these discussion groups about I'm having trouble with the English language today. These discussion groups are aimed at sharing information that's the latest and greatest from the ministry and any updates that we have, and then allowing all of you to participate in more of a discussion forum where you can ask the questions that you have. So there's no set, we'll call it thematic portion of this. You can ask any of the questions that you have, and we'll be hosting them every week. So we're recommending that if you're really curious and interested, that you join us as many times as you can. Like everything that we do, we will host these sessions on our website once they have been completed. And our goal is to also have a summary of the questions that get asked during these discussion groups with the answers also posted on the website after the discussions have happened. So next slide there, Pam. These are kind of the things we're going to go through today. A little bit of webinar housekeeping, though. If you have any questions, we're asking you to put them ahead in the chat. And what's going to happen is I'm going to monitor the discussion in the chat as well as be monitoring the discussion live. So you will have a chance right now. You notice most of you are muted. You will have a chance to unmute your microphone and ask questions. And for the ease of, we'll say, managing the, I'm sure a million questions that are going to come, that if you can, raise your hand so that I can also help folks not overspeak each other and we get the benefit of everybody's question and answer. Like I said, a copy will be posted on the OAPSB members portal. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that members portal at the end of our discussion today. So without further ado, our star presenter, Pam Dhaliwal, is on the call, and she's going to start walking us through some of the more recent updates that we've heard from the ministry. Take it away, Pam.
Thank you very much, Janine, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This will be I have a few updates from the ministry, a few things I'm highlighting that you should have available, that you should really be working on for the April 1st date. And we do have some other sessions, the Q&A sessions, but I just want to quickly post that we are actually having other sessions too. One will be on special constables and a deep dive into that, and then a deep dive into the complaints process too, in addition to the Q&As that we have going on weekly. So just be aware there will be other detailed sessions we're working on. So
actually, they announced today, Pam. I just wanted to let you know. So the training on April 2nd and April 23rd, and we can cover that at the end.
Yeah, perfect. So we have one ministry update. So from the last presentation that I gave earlier this month, we had said that we had put a question forward to the ministry in relation to the diversity plan that the boards had to prepare. If you were at that presentation that I gave, that there is a section for the municipalities under 28.5 where they were given 12 months to put the plan in place. So we had asked the ministry, well, what about boards? Can you give out? We don't have a time frame. What's our time frame? So in this slide is I didn't want to put any interpretation in on it, but it is specifically the response from the ministry. It says there's no specific timeline established for the board's diversity plan to be adopted. However, the obligation is to prepare and adopt it, meaning that the board should at least begin preparing the plan upon the act coming into force to be in compliance with the act. So really it means that you don't have to have the plan April 1st, but you have to be showcasing that you're working on putting a plan together. So whether you have a framework of all the items you want to have, you have discussions set up with the with your municipality, that you're working in collaboration, you just have to showcase that you're working on it and that you will be adopting something within it. So for me, I would say if it was me, I want to stick to the same municipality's timeline, but as long as it's very clear, you're showing that you're working on something. So that is the first update directly from the ministry on something that we had advocated for or asked for clarification on behalf of boards. So that's good news. right? You do not have to have a plan finalized by April 1st. You just have to show it's working. You're working on something. The next thing, so the next slide I put together is really April 1st. This is the date. So really, we all been like, we have policies to update, you have procedures to go through, you have all of that stuff to work through as boards, well aware of that, but you're not all going to have it by April 1st. The ministry is aware you're not going to have it all by April 1st. It is a journey, but here are some key things that you should have in place by April 1st because it's public facing, and I did speak to these earlier. Obviously, if you have any open positions on your boards that can be filled by the municipality, then we would absolutely say try to get those filled as soon as possible, whether it's your local appointee or municipal, get them appointed because there is the training piece, which I'll speak to in a little bit. Make sure that you've all read the Code of Conduct, which is Ontario Regulation 4823, if you haven't already done so. So, maybe, you have a sign off that, the board members say that they've read and understood the Code of Conduct. Whatever you do on your board side of things, just make sure that, by April 1st, you're all read and understood the new Code of Conduct that's come out 4823. All right, the big one. Roles and responsibility training, the mandatory training that the ministry has required boards to do, not on municipal and the OPP side, but this is for municipal. I was on a meeting yesterday with the committee that was pulling this together. They are waiting for sign off from the deputy minister, but you will get a communication from Ontario Police College for an all chiefs memo for your registration. If that does not come out today, they are telling us it will come out tomorrow. So OAPSB will be on top of this, and we will also send out notifications as soon as it comes up that you should be registering to Ontario Police College for your accounts to do this mandatory training. And then from there, you will have a link where you will sign up to Ontario Police College, and you'll get links to the municipal board training. There are 4 trainings. The ones that, because I'm dealing with municipal police services boards right now, you will complete the municipal police service board training. You'll see one there for First Nation municipal boards. You'll see one for First Nations OPP boards and OPP detachment boards. You are just completing the one, which is the municipal police service board roles and responsibilities training. So that will be today, tomorrow, whenever you get that notification, complete it, send it off, and then you'll hear back from Ontario Police College with the information. Okay. So have all of your board members' contact, emails, information. It's going to be one form for the entire board. And so you will complete all of that. And then you also have to identify who is the key person that they can notify, whether it's your administrator or whether it's the chair of the board. You have to identify one key person that they can give notifications to for certificates being completed or what have you. So just note that that is something that you should put in, and I'll update the slide. I just heard this, so I'm going to update the slide with those points before I publish it out. So as you do complete the training, there'll be a handoff slide. You can print off all of the modules. It's 5 modules. And you can, if you want, you can jump to the questions or you can go through it module by module. It's very flexible to the way you use it. If you do answer one question incorrectly, you have a retry button and you can answer that question right away. So it is very easy for you to, so don't stress about it. It is easy for you to work through, and then print off the certificate in the end so that you can hand that off to your administrator, your board person that needs to know that you've completed the training in order for you to then be a voting member of the board. Just a few things that you should probably just keep in mind when you come down that road. All right, so that is the roles and responsibilities training piece that is mandatory. Just as a note, this is the mandatory one for being voting board members. There was that second piece of training, which was the thematic training. We heard that one is delayed, but that one you don't have to have completed till 6 months after it's been released. So if it's released, say May 1st, you'll have 6 months after that date to get that training completed. But we have heard that that is on delay right now. So no worry, no stressing on that one. Okay, the next one I have in place here for April 1st is the Act's very clear that if you do give directions to the chief of police, they need to be published on the internet. So ensure that for your first meeting that you have in April after you've all done the training and that you meet that requirement, that you have put in a spot, whether it's in your agenda, or whether you're going to build another spot on your website, that you do meet the requirement of posting any directions that you give to the chief. So that would be one that I would flag as saying easy to do. Boards, make sure you're in compliance by your first meeting in April, whatever that may be. The next one bullet on there is closed meetings. Because they've added a whole bunch of items to allow boards, whether they have closed, more options to put into a closed door meeting. Just make sure you're aware of those, so that if you are looking at your agenda and there's something that now can be in a closed door meeting and that's where you want to move it to, just that's something that now you have that flexibility to. So just make sure administrators and that you have that updated, at least in your policy, to allow for that one to move into closed door. Because if you move something into closed door and a public member is saying, hey, you shouldn't have moved that in, at least your policy online, this one policy online, has that comprehensive list of what you can move into in camera. So that maybe help mitigate any questions and issues that come up. So that one I would suggest that you have ready for April 1st too. The next one on the list there is the certificate appointment for a police officer. There is a section there that says that if you're hiring a new police officer as of, April 1st, right now I know you'd probably do the oaths, the swearing ins, they go to the courthouse, the officers do all the steps that are required as a part of their becoming a police officer process. But it's very clear that you have to also issue a certificate of appointment. The same thing for special constables. So just have a certificate of appointment that basically says, an officer, your police officer working for the police service that they're involved with, and that this is your date of appointment, and their badge number, obviously, would be a good thing to have on there. So anybody hired new as of April 1st, just make sure you meet the requirement for a certificate of appointment. The other one that I have in here is the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency. So we all know that's been the OIPRD, and if there's any public complaints, you've always directed, and your website should have a piece on there, a piece in the west section on there that says public complaints, go to the OIPRD website, and you've linked it there. As of April 1st, I've had this conversation with the Ministry of the Attorney General, because they're the ones that are responsible for this piece. The OIPRD website will be there, but there'll also be a law enforcement's complaints agency website. And so it will be redirected to the new LECA website. So even if you don't get the OIPRD website removed from your sites, it will still automatically go to LECA. Okay, so just so that you know, you don't really have to do anything. There is an all chiefs memo coming out, if not next week, in relation to this, but I did just want to give you a heads up that even if you do nothing, it will automatically go to the LECA portal. The one question that I do have out to the folks here on this complaints agency is, there was that requirement to have OIPRD forms in police service lobbies. And I'm asking them if that is a requirement that you have a new law enforcement complaints agency form that boards or police services will get to post in their lobbies too. I don't have an answer on that one yet. As soon as I do, I will let you know. So just so there are some other things that I asked that we're still pending on, but for this complaint side, for public police officer complaints, it will be an automatic redirect, just so that you know. Okay. Special constables, we all know that this one's a big piece that has changed in the Act. So under section 92(1), just ensure that when you do have, as of April 1st, if there's a new special constable, that you have a process that you get a confirmation from the chief or from whoever that they've met the requirements under the Act, right? So whether it's just a sign off saying, before we issue this appointment certificate to a special constable, just have maybe them report that they've met all the requirements and that that person has met it, which they would, but from a governance perspective, would not be bad to have in place. And then have this certificate ready for any new hires as of April 1st. Under section 92.7, it has name of the police services board. It does list that you need to have what duties the special constable can report on. So that all needs to be in your certificate. And if you look at regulation 396.23, there's that schedule that I showed at my last presentation that lists all the acts and laws that special constable. So it'd be great to just add those pieces into your certificate. So you are very clear on the authority that that special constable can work under in this certificate. Okay, and the act is very clear on 5 areas that you need to have in there. Okay, those ones are April 1st ready, I would say. You may not be on a big hiring push forward, but just as a board, if you're working on things, this would be one of them that I would have in place. The other big ticket item, which I think is one of my last ones on my list for April 1st, is your special constable's complaints process. And if you look at the Act, if you look at Ontario Regulation 411.23, it's very clear. Every police service board shall establish a process for complaints to be made to the chief. So it is your responsibility as a board to have this process established. I want to make something clear. You can establish the process, doesn't mean you have to manage the process. So you know what, if I'm just gonna, and that this process needs to be on the internet. So as a member of the public, if I have a complaint against the special constable, it's the board's responsibility that that member of the public can go to your website, pick up the form, understand the process, and understand where they are submitting that form to. Whether it's the chief, whether it's the complaints department within the service. I'm just going to move to my next slide here. There is probably already a process in place. You need to work with your chief, right? So find out from the chief whether they already have a special constable complaints process in place. If so, make sure it reflects the CSPA new sections, that you have a form, that it is on the board's website, available for any public member that of April 1st wants to make a complaint against a special constable. And these are special constables employed by the police service, not employed by a special constable employer. These are police service special constables you're responsible for. You know, you need to understand, is there a screening process? Will the chief or whoever is handling it within the services department, that process needs to be clearly defined for the member of the public to understand what will happen to their complaint. Under the Act, the chief needs to, or the individual needs to get confirmation, acknowledgement of their complaint. So you need to make sure that's in your process and that the investigation has to be completed within 120 days. So that you're aware that for those special constable complaints, it's the same as the other ones, 120 days. If you don't make the 120 days, then they need to be notified of why, and then they get updates every 30 days after that. So just make sure that the process is clearly defined in your procedure that you're going to post on the website, and really clearly special constable complaints. The chief has a requirement to report back to the board on any of those outcomes. So within your policy for this, you know, one, the individual should be clear that that information does come back to the board. So that's privacy, and that their information may not, even though they may be de-identified information at that point, but it needs to come back to the board. And then the board needs to be, what do you want from the chief? Do you want to understand, could be in camera, like what is the information? Be clear on privacy and what the chief can and can't. So as you're working through this process with your chief, and that the board then also needs to come together as to, okay, every time at the completion of one, we want that at the next board meeting in camera. And then you can, you know, de-identify it and post it, you know, in your minutes of the meetings thereafter. But as your policy for this one, this is the board's responsibility to have the process in place, even though the chief may be managing the whole process and making sure these timelines are met. And your responsibility is oversight and governance to make sure that this process is being met from a board. So as of April 1st, these are the big ticket items that I would say that you as a board need to be working on right now and getting in place, because they're very much so public facing, that you have sole responsibility of. Okay. There are other items, but I mean, like your internal processes based on chief's misconduct, because there is a requirement to report that up to the to the Inspectorate of Policing or the Inspector General. I'm having a session on that in just on the complaints process and misconduct later on, I believe in April. So we can dive into those pieces and what are the requirements there, but that's not really an April 1st right away, unless you get in a conduct between now, between April 1st and that training, at which point you can reach out to us and we can help. But needless to say, I would say that those are, like I said, ticket items that boards should be focused on. So that's pretty much all I had to bring forward for today, as a part of our side of it. The forum is yours. The floor is yours to ask us questions you're faced with, issues that you're dealing with. We do have these discussion groups that I said that we're going to be doing every week. So if you don't have a question this week, you want to ask us, shoot us an email. We'll address it in the next following session. If you want us to come to a board meeting and you want to have a working session, we are okay to do that. But these discussion groups are forums for you guys to come ask us questions or things you would like us to look at. I did just want to float one other thing here for you. All of the training materials, all of these presentations, recorded videos, these recordings, you will find in the member portal under education and training, conference and seminar presentations. So if you're looking for this, that is exactly where you need to go. And I'll leave it up for a little bit. Sign in your members portal, go to under the member information, go into education and training, and then conference and seminar presentations. All right. And then we have our app, which we will be posting things on. So like I said, we have this new OPC sending out to us saying, get your registration forms. We're actually going to post it on the app so that you get it. If you're on the app already, you'll get that notification right away. LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn. We'll be posting a lot of things, but also on our OAPSB website as the flurry of activities become more prevalent as we get closer to April 1st. So finally, we'll move on to the open forum session of this meeting. So you can please ask away and we'll answer what we can. And if not, we'll take it back and I will respond back in the minute in the meeting, posting them, all the FAQs that we post as of these.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. So everybody can unmute your microphones if you want to, or you can unmute them one at a time. It's up to you. There were no questions in the chat, but I want you all to know that in the chat feature, which if you go to the bottom of the screen that you're looking at, you should see a pop-up menu, and there's 3 dots there that say more. And if you click that, you can bring up the chat and it'll show on your screen. I did also put in the chat that we do have special constable and complaint process for municipal board training coming April 2nd and April 23rd. And I posted the link to register for both of those online. As we said, these discussion groups are going to be happening weekly. The time will either be during the day like this one, noon to 1:30, or they will be happening from 6:30 until 8 p.m. in the evening. So when you register for these sessions, you can see the times that are there. We do encourage you to attend as many as you can because you just never know what kind of information you're going to get. So first question coming from Daryl. What section of the Act was for special constables? I missed what you said.
Okay, so I'm actually just going to move back there.
Yeah,
so
that or if you want to bring up your screen and put the Act up, that's fine too.
The Act is very interesting. If you're talking about the complaints process for special constables, that is that's the Ontario regulation.
Yep.
41123. So that's the reg when it comes to special constable complaints. When it comes to special constables for the appointment process, then you should look at section 92. 92.1 lists out all of their the requirements for them. And actually, maybe I don't know if I can do this pretty simply. Can you see the Act now?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going to make you dizzy here for just a second here, folks. I apologize.
So it's 91 and 92. So one is about the requirements for constables. He says, thanks, that's what he was looking for. 92 is about the certificate process and making sure that.
Yeah, so if we take a look at section 92.1, this is the appointments. So these are all of the requirements that the individual who is becoming a special constable should have. So if you're before you appoint them, you know, you just want to make sure that they're met one of these requirements that they fall under. And then when I spoke to the certificate, I talked about this is what the shall. So this is a shall to the board specify. And it's the name of the employer, which would be the Police Services Board, because you are the employer of the constable, right? The term of appointment, which if there is a prescribed period, if there isn't, most of them will be just employees that will fall under probably a civilian association. The purposes. So when I was talking about that Ontario Regulation 396, what is the purpose? What acts can they enforce? Right? So that's where you need to list out. And I'm going to see if I can do this here. Sorry. So if we go to the schedule on this one, so when we're talking about the act, so this is the schedule in the Ontario Regulation 396/23. So this is a special constable who is employed by a police service. They can basically have powers under any one of these that are listed out in this schedule. So when I was talking about your certificate being aligned with the schedule, just if you have, they're in courts and they're allowed to be the courts, just make sure that it's an alignment with this schedule, which is under the Ontario regulation. And then you can just list the ones, Highway Traffic Act, you know, they have the liquor license, they can do the LLA license. So all of those acts, put those into your certificate under the purposes for which they may act as a special constable. That's how the two could be really tied together as you're putting this certificate out there. And remember, this is when you do have a special constable, you put an application into the ministry, right? So the ministry will approve that this special constable can fall under all of the, whatever the powers are. Just list those into the certificate, which is at C. And then any other powers that they may exercise and whether they're allowed to possess a firearm. So some special constables, there are certain the ministry will allow them, and the chief has put in that they will be possessing a firearm. That needs to be on your certificate. So those are the two sections related to special constables. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yep, I think we answered it a little while ago, but that's great.
Sorry.
No,
I'm really into this stuff, as you can tell.
Pam's really into it, and she's very, very thorough, which is a great thing for all of you. So any more questions with like, do you want to put them in the chat? Would folks prefer to raise their hand? How do you want to do that? Feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, unmute yourself, ask a question. While we're waiting for the next question, Pam, if you want to go up 2 slides, maybe 3 slides, sorry, next one. We have here also, if you're registering for the other discussion groups, again, the registration for any of our events can be found on the public side under events, and there'll be flyers there that will take you directly to where you can register for all of the activities that we have going on. It looked like, John, you had raised your hand in the camera even. You have a question.
Yes, I put it in the chat room, but I was just
oh, did I miss it? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. There's a requirement by the ministry for municipalities to make sure that they have appointments to the board. I'm wondering if there's the same responsibility placed on the ministry to make sure there's provincial appointments on the board.
There is under the Act, yes, they are required to appoint to the municipal boards. Yes, and we all know that the province is the province, and they are doing the best that they can to make sure that all the provincial appointments are being met. But I don't know, Janine, if you have an update on any of that stuff.
I do, actually. So what we are asking for folks that if you're still missing provincial appointees, to send us a specific information. So twofold, send us a specific email. You can send it to training@OAPSB, or you can send it to either the 3 of us, letting us know what board and how many provincial appointees you're still missing. The second thing is your provincial appointees, of course, come April 1st will no longer be.
No, that's for OPP detachment, section 10 to the other one. So that's not applied, Janine. So what
Right.
happens
Oh,
is
right. They do carry it. I
extended.
apologize.
Yeah,
Yep.
they extended. So if you have a municipal appointee that hasn't been extended, or if you're missing a
That's what I'm
municipal
trying to say.
appointee,
Yep.
a provincial
Send us an
appointee,
email.
send us an email and we can, I know Lisa has regular meetings with the individuals that are appointing, so she can bring that forward and just list off and see if we have any updates. But no, we don't have an update. We know that they have that responsibility. They know they have that responsibility, and we're lighting fires, but it's the best that we can do based on everything that's going on. So John, I mean, it's a non-answer, but do try to flag it with us and we can advocate.
Right. What I would also say is if you can't meet quorum because you're missing a provincial appointee, let us know that in the email. Additionally, there was one other thing. Thank you for the clarity, Pam. There was one other thing I was going to add. So one, if you can't meet quorum, two, who your provincial appointees are, or what vacancies that you have. Three, make sure you're copying us on that. And four, let us know if there's been anybody who has applied that is in the queue that needs to be expedited.
Just to follow up on that, so we've been short a provincial appointee since December, which in the scheme of things isn't all that long. However, the provincial appointee that was there has put her name in. I've sent emails to the ministry, Jacob specifically, who is supposed to be in charge of provincial appointees.
Yep.
So far, I've heard crickets.
Okay, so send it to us. And if you could, John, also copy your police liaison officer, whoever that happens to be with the ministry in your zone.
Yeah, Dwayne is well aware of what's going
Dwayne
on.
is
Yeah,
because I copied him.
just copy him because we don't want to leave him out of the loop on what we're doing. Send us all that information and then we'll take it from there.
John, do you
Okay.
have quorum on your board or without the provincial appointee?
All I need is to be one person away, and I'm gone. I'm done.
Okay, so then yeah, you'll yeah, okay, no problem. As long as that's really a big issue, right? So okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up yet in the chat. Does anybody have any specific questions? Pam, if you want to stop sharing your screen, you can, or just take it right back to the last slide. Here from Dave Blackburn, do municipal appointees receive the same remuneration as OICs on the board? He's got in parentheses here, $150 minimum per meeting, be it training sessions or for all other meetings. So I know there's been a lot of discussion regarding remuneration. So you want to bring us up to date on that?
So, okay, so the last update we had was exactly what was put out in the regulation site for comments.
Yep.
Whereas on the municipal boards, provincial appointees would get $150 per diem, right, per day. So that's all it says. And up to, that's the minimum, right? So you can probably give them more if you want, but that's the minimum as per right now. But that was out for comments. We, the OAPSB, did submit a lot of feedback. We received some and we sent feedback based on that one item for more clarification on what their definition is for that. Whether it applies to the local appointees or the community reps that we have on these boards, because they may not get a per diem. Also for the First Nation side of things. So we also asked them to say, can you move it to an annual? Give us more clarity on what you're actually asking for. We have heard nothing back and nothing new has been posted in relation to that. So what we are suggesting you do, I know that a lot of municipalities do pay for individuals that have a policy, a bylaw or something that says if you sit on the police services board, you will get X amount of remuneration right now. If you don't have anything like that, then fine, but as per what we know right now, you would have to, at least as of April 1st, remunerate your provincial appointees the $150. Now, what I said the last was like, come up with something as to what that $150 is. You do $150 every time you have a meeting that they paid that, or do you give them like a day and a half for their prep for the meeting and then the actual meeting attendance? you know, whatever that looks like, you need to come up as a board with a policy related to that, barring the fact that we haven't heard that they're changing anything or doing anything different. If you are already remunerating members of your municipal boards, then you just need to make sure that it is meeting the 150, you know, basically amount per day, whether that, you know, you have to say it's 11 meetings a year, here's what we're remunerating them at, and it does meet the 150. So whatever the process is to make sure that you meet that as a minimum is what the suggestion would be, that you look at that to make, and then make sure as of April 1st, you have a process to pay them for their time on the board as a provincial appointee, and that it meets the minimum requirements, that you've defined what that means. So unfortunately, it has been left up to boards the way that it's currently worded as to the implementation of it and the processes that you're going to put into place.
And that, thank you for that, Pam. Just a clarity in case we have any folks that are representing First Nations on the call today. First Nations reps that sit on a board will be remunerated by the province. But that is also not been put in writing. That is just something that we have discussed on calls. And so the OAPSB has recommended that the ministry put a regulation in place in order to clarify that information for anybody who's from a First Nation sitting on a board. Next question from Kristen Dave and Sam. They've prepared a certificate of appointment form for the board to use for special constables. Do boards require a similar form after they approve the hiring of sworn members?
All the act says is that the board shall issue a certificate of appointment to police officers. It's not as detailed as it is for special constables, but I'm actually just looking for that section and I'll put it in the chat, but it does say that you do have to issue a certificate. So whether that's, you know, just a very simple certificate, it doesn't detail out like it did for special constable. So yes, but maybe not as detailed.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just wondering then, the board could possibly create a policy by which they authorize the service to issue the certificate through a bylaw, maybe delegation of authority?
Absolutely.
Okay, because in the past, the board would just get an HR report with respect to the hiring of new members. And we didn't see any certificates of appointment. So perhaps that's one way to manage it.
Yeah,
if we don't want to create those forms and manage them and prepare them.
sure.
You
Yeah,
might decide to have them as an added document as part of your employment contract too. That's another way to handle it.
And sorry, how,
service. Yeah.
so to do that, how did you mention that, Janine?
I'm sorry, you can have that as an attachment to your employment contract.
so
Okay, that it's the service's responsibility.
Yeah.
yeah, so my suggestion would be that you do, if you are gonna delegate the authority to issue the certificates on appointment to the service to do, then upon maybe swearing in, because it's upon appointment, right? So the board
Yes.
appoints, right?
Yeah.
So at that point in time, you have to determine the appointment date of that officer. And then if that is delegated, then that needs to go on to that certificate. And then I would advise you have governance over this, or your boards, and this is governance. These are your employees, because as the act says, that's a duty now. You are the employer. That you get the HR report. You would probably want a copy of the certificate. And don't forget, you need to now add in, when you do get that diversity plan created, you would also want to ensure that they've met the requirements under the diversity plan.
Okay.
So when you're looking at that policy, make sure that in that HR report, you as a board are going to say to the chief, here's our diversity plan. Please make sure that you meet the requirements under this diversity plan. And if you don't, and you've promoted somebody or hired people that haven't met the requirements of your plan, then you may want to report back to say why there weren't as many candidates for that in that, you know, based on the diversity plan, or, you know, this candidate was just more stellar in there, whatever. But you need to have that governance to make sure that what you're requesting is covered. So just remember that piece, if you're looking at updating this policy and delegating the authority, that you still maintain governance of those pieces.
Okay, thank you. That that's more clear. And again, this could be, so it would be a policy and then a bylaw, because you need the bylaw to
bylaw.
delegate the authority.
That's right.
And then as part of the policy bylaw, it could be that the service abide by the board's diversity plan when hiring, blah, 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 blah.
That's right. When
Okay.
hiring, and then you also need to think about what about promoting,
Right.
right? Because you know what, that's another thing that we talk about following a diversity plan, but there's also, you forget the promotion process. So should they be looking at your diversity plan if you have a promotional process included?
Right.
So something, just to keep in mind that there's more way of moving up, but also coming in.
Right. And that would be under another piece of the diversity plan versus
be.
new hires, but that's definitely something to consider.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So John had another question here. Does the OAPSB have sample forms / certificates that can be shared? We don't have anything there yet, John. We've been working on, I've been specifically working on bylaws and policy updates, not necessarily certificates. We haven't posted them to the website just yet because they need one final review. But we're also working on memorandums of understandings for multiple municipalities inside of an OPP detachment area. We're working on a generic job ad that you can use to recruit community members, and some job specific requirements for administrators and board secretaries, etc. So it's in the queue. We just don't have them complete just yet. If we need to expedite that, John, so why don't you get with me and maybe I can work on something specific that we can expedite. Yeah, I will leave that to you and I to work on, but John, we'll keep you in the queue with that. Okay. The ministry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, so I think it was Kirsten, you had the question we just had on certificate appointments and certificates for officers. Just for your reference, it's actually section 83.4. So section 83.4 is the one that says a police service board or the commissioner shall issue a certificate appointment to a person at the time of his or her appointment as a police officer. So when you do reference in your bylaw, that's the authority under the act that you're delegating.
Okay, perfect. And then there's probably a section in there too on oath of office has to be administered as well.
Yes.
That's under the duties down below. But yeah, the oath of office, you have the code of conduct. You need to make sure that they understood the code of conduct. So there are those pieces that I'm sure you get in your HR report anyways, right? And that they've been sworn in at courthouse, etc. Sworn secrecy, oath of secrecy is the other one. And just as you know, they have that new regulations for the new code, for the new oaths, right?
Right.
So just make sure that
the
new oaths of office have been picked up when you're doing this.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to consider when you're looking at this. So our HR reports that come to our board are they don't contain a lot of information at all, but all we need to do is revise the wording so that moving forward, it's a standard template.
Yeah.
Because I know with regards to the special constable appointments, we're ensuring that it's the service's responsibility to do the oath of office, not the board's. I mean, that's not something we can manage. So it's just so much information that just needs to be identified and then incorporated either into your own policy or in the delegation of authority bylaw.
That's right.
So thank you for pointing out that section, and I'll definitely draft something up on that.
Okay. All right. Ooh, anything else? Let's check if there's any more in the chat.
I would just say though, for those of you that are actively working on your policies, and if you're comfortable sharing those policies with us, I'm happy to scrub them, and we can also use them as templates for other boards that maybe don't have administrative support. So if you want to give that any clarification, we gladly accept the help to help us expedite our own forms repository. Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat. Oh,
there is one on, I think Dave put something in. Do municipal appointees receive the same remuneration as OIC?
We already talked about that.
Okay.
One. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a bit of a delay when people are typing them in as to when we see them. I just noticed that. So, John, thank you. Oaths have been standardized a while ago. So again, oath of office versus the oath that the board members need to take. Let me see here. We've got nothing else here. I don't see any hands up. Does anybody else have any other questions?
So John, just a question. Are you referring to the oaths under the Ontario Regulation 41623? Because that was the latest one that was issued on the oaths where they updated them. So just so that we're speaking the same language there. So
Oh, you're on mute, John.
Yeah, sure. 1463. The numbers.
I'm sorry, I live and breathe this stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so that is the new one. Came out in
Yes.
23. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're
Any
gonna...
other top of mind questions? That we don't have to stick to the stuff you have to have done by April 1st. If anybody's got questions about unrelated sections of your responsibilities, feel free to toss those out too. We don't mind answering questions out of order.
I do want to just make one note here. One of the things that the ministry has really been, pushing with Lisa and working with some of the larger police service boards is the concept of governance. So and it's the sense of that, the fact that this is all came out because the governance of boards, right? So from somebody who has worked at a police service and understood the mechanics and the dynamics and did a lot of that stuff, it's like the governance. When I'm bringing up things about making sure that they meet the requirements, that you're getting confirmations back. So when you're looking at your policies and you're posting them on the website, they're almost like they are directions to the service and to the chief, because that's what you're requesting the chief to do. So when you're looking at that, just make sure that when you're saying report back on this, that it's clear that that's something that you're getting and that you have the right governance model putting in place when you're working on these updated items and these policies. Like obviously the diversity plan's an easy one, but there are other pieces like, even with we talked about special constables complaints. We even talked about anything internally with the service. If there's an issue or a matter going on, like how are you advised of those things? And when you're doing your annual evaluation of the chief now, which is obviously a requirement under the duties of the board, it was an evaluation, but now they've put in an annual evaluation. Are you updating what's included in your annual evaluation? Are you doing a 360? Are you talking, one of the big ones that I've always thought of is the service, the way the service performs and is outward facing to the public, not even, and also to partners, right? Are you getting an evaluation back from them on how the service is managing and working? I worked courts for a while. I was managing the courts department, and they were saying that our informations, where there are always issues with our informations, attentions to details or what have you, which is reflective of the way the service is functioning. So are you meeting with the Crown Attorney of your area just to get an overview of how the service is functioning? If they're seeing a lot of issues come up, like those types of things. As a board, it's a governance, right? You're looking at how the service is outward facing too. So just some thoughts that, you can look at and have discussions on if you want to look at not only for your strategic plan when you move forward, but also an evaluation of how the service is doing. So just some thoughts that
some of those
you may want to consider.
Cam, would you recommend taking a look at the community safety and well-being plan and find out who the partners were that are involved in that document as another outreach for public comment on performance of the service?
Yeah, I mean, it does say the board or a chief sitting on the community safety group, right? Community safety plan.
But there are partners in there too that could be
absolutely
used for performance consultation.
That's right.
Where it was going.
Right. That's right.
You're kind
just,
of not
just
sure.
throwing out their thought as you're looking at your policies and updating them, because we know every single one is going to have to be touched because you need to update it from PSA to CSPA. So in that review process, just make sure that there's nothing you want to add in from a governance perspective that, you may want to. And sometimes they'll say it's operational, which is fine. That's a conversation you can have, but you can get an overarching view of what is going on in the service. So
okay, John's asked another really good question. So the litmus test for the direction items to the chief to be posted to the internet. We did cover this in one of the trainings, but would bring back a report to next meeting qualify as these would also show in open minutes. So I guess the answer is yes. We had clarified and Pam can bring more detail to this, though, if you're providing direction to your chief, they should be captured in your meeting minutes so that you can review follow-up in the following meeting minutes if there's resolution that needs to happen. Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, that was my point. I took it that you had to post the direction on the internet.
You do, but your
Now,
meeting minutes need to be posted, right? So you could easily
oh,
put them in your meeting minutes. And we had also recommended as kind of a best practice, if you wanted to have 2 sections in your meeting minutes that are just for directions to the chief and resolutions to any in-camera discussions, because they need to be public as well.
actually, in camera would not be public.
Not the in-camera discussion, but the resolution should be a public note.
The
A very
resolution to
high
have.
levels, a high level summary, not the actual resolution. So they do deal with a lot of things in camera that you would not want public. Obviously, they're in camera. So, you know, you can draw. So an example being, even though, you know, we would sometimes have a discussion and then there was an element of a cost, right? So you're now putting more cameras in certain spots around the police station or what have you. You're having, because of security reasons, or you're updating your firewall to have a certain level, and there's a cost element to that, right? So your resolution, even though you've approved the chief to update their security measures or what have you they're doing, there's a cost piece to that. So when you pull that into your minutes from the open forum, in discussion, in camera discussions,
Exactly.
there's a cost of, you know, $10,000 that's been approved for security measures, or just like for IT services to be performed or what have you. So, you know, those types of things, because, you know, when you have the audit, so when the auditors come in, they like to go over all the minutes, open minutes of those types of things. So that would be a clear something that you discussed in camera. It's not, the details are not coming out into open forum, but what you have approved as a board in camera does come out from those types of things. So it's really that very simplified high level that should be posted in your public forum minutes, right? That's what Janine's alluding to. But to answer your question, what we're saying is in your minutes, I'm assuming you have a board actions section of all the things that you're going to deal with, or that there's open items that you want to bring up at the next meeting. You could add into section there directions to the chief if you wanted to, or you can have a separate section from a management on your website if you want to put that separately. It really doesn't matter how you do it. It just needs to be done. Right. So if, you know, the IG comes up and saying, hey, what are the directions you made to the chief? I don't see them on your website. You can say, you go into the minutes on, you know, under the end of the minutes, there's always going to be directions to the board at the last page or what have you. So it's more of the implementation of the process is yours, but just make sure you meet the requirement.
Yeah, and we do that now. We have
Yeah.
discussion in closed,
Yeah.
but never a decision is made in closed. It's always brought out
Comes
into
out.
open.
Yeah.
Based on discussions we had. And
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and a lot of the discussions we may redo and open, just so that everyone can hear, anyone that's there can hear what was discussed, rather than just saying, well, we discussed it and decided to do this. No,
Yeah.
we try and give them some logic as to why we made the decision.
Okay, that's great.
That's more than qualifies for meeting a standard.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's not like that all the time. So, yeah.
No other questions are coming up in the chat just yet. Again, folks, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you would prefer to do it that way. We have about 6 minutes left. Again, a summary of everything that we've discussed today will be not only a posting of the recording of this discussion, but certainly posting of the frequently asked questions that we're going to continue to build from these sessions will also be posted on our website. We will have information going out to let you know when they have been posted. So, you know, for those of you that like to send an email right away saying, can I get a copy? We will let you know as soon as everything has been posted. Our goal is to get those up there though within the week. And before the next, certainly before the next discussion session. So folks have an opportunity to check and see what was discussed in our last discussion. We keep I'm using the word discussion a lot, so I'm having a hard time with my thesaurus here today. Any other questions from the floor? Again, feel free to unmute your microphone or type in the chat if you're more comfortable. Thank you from Kristen I'm sorry, I keep saying Kristen, it's Kirsten. I apologize, Kirsten. Thanks for hosting the session. You're very welcome. We hope to see you on more of these sessions. I'm sure as we get down into the weeds on some of this stuff, there will be a lot more questions and a lot more back and forth for these groups. Again, and if you're doing something in your board that you feel is a best practice, feel free to share that with us. We not only want to celebrate with you, but we want your permission, if we can, to scrub any details and share that. We'll call it stealing with pride, or other boards that may not be as well established as the boards that are sharing the information. So our goal is to help each other here.
And I just want to put a plug in for the June conference. So
Oh,
we
yeah,
do have
absolutely.
the OAPSB conference, the spring conference coming up. I think it's June 3rd to 5th.
Yes, it is.
And it's going to be a jam-packed agenda. A lot of it CSPA best practices, a lot of those types of discussions, and we'll post. So just so we were working on the agenda right now, and it's very much so a lot of planning meetings, breakout sessions to help really focus and dive in on at parts of the CSPA that are coming up and some best practices. So
Yep.
just
Not
put
only
those in
that,
your
discussion groups by profile. So what I mean there is discussion groups for administrators and secretaries / treasurers of boards and zones versus board members. So we're really looking to bring some diversity to the discussion and really reach a number of other people. So even if you don't sit on a board and you're a support service for a board, you know, you might want to consider attending if that makes sense for you. No other questions coming. So
Okay.
One question.
Oh, that's okay.
yeah,
It's Dave. Now I forget, but it's beneficial to attend these sessions weekly? You would
yeah,
recommend?
absolutely. If you want the
Okay.
benefit of participating in the conversation, like I said, we might get some of the same questions every weekend. We might get a whole bunch of different questions.
Right.
And Dave, just know that the videos, we're going to record all of these sessions too. If you can't make one, the video recordings will be available for you to watch or play in the background on a drive or what have you. You know,
Okay.
I mean, we're not creating
Maybe,
podcasts,
Go
but
off the
hey,
road.
they could be. So,
I
yeah.
recommend before going to bed.
Oh
So
yeah,
we
be up
will
all
have
night.
these, the
All right,
videos will
thank
be
you very much,
available.
ladies.
Yeah,
was
you're
great.
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah, folks, like, you know, if there aren't any other questions, you can feel free to log off
Okay.
the call. Like I said, we've got 2 minutes left or just under 2 minutes. So if we've exhausted you at this point and you don't have any other questions, you feel free to get back with your day. We'll stay online until exactly 1
Thank
o'clock.
you all. Thank you all
Yes.
for
Bye all.
our
Thank
first
you.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have some folks still staying on the call, so
You never know, last
can't
minute.
think of anything else that we haven't covered.
No, we're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Wait just one more minute and then we're good.
Absolutely. Any parting thoughts?
Not for me.
Okay. So Becky, you're the last one on the call. Do you have anything you want to discuss?
Okay. All right, Janina, that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap. Let me stop the recording.